Next, the Overlap released a video where Kieran Maguire was talking about the 115 charges. Let's take a little listen to this.
Commissions for both Everton and Forest said the way forward. It's no point fining a billionaire owner a few quid. So because there's no disincentive there to misbehave. So if you take a look at, if you read the commission reports, and I wouldn't recommend, it's probably about as exciting as watching Brighton versus Forest at the weekend. If you read the commission reports from cover to cover, they both say that these were minor breaches of the rules. And what Manchester City are being accused of is corporate fraud over the period of nearly a decade. So if guilty, you've got to add a 0 to the points deductions that we've seen for Forest and Everton. If not guilty, there's going to be a lot of trouble.
Sorry, Jeb, I was just going to say, they usually frame it as if both sides have won, haven't they? Somehow. Do you think that's likely to happen as well? And there's also there's a lawyer's fees to pay as well, isn't there?
Yeah, if we take a look at the associated party transaction rule, which came out recently, where Manchester City effectively said the Premier League rules are unfair, that was a big victory for Manchester City. But the Premier League have tried to claim that they were the beneficiaries there. We will find out. Ultimately, there's going to be a penalty, and that penalty is going to be decided by the Commission. If it's in the form of points deductions, then it's got to be a victory for the Premier League. I think the one concern that people have is what happens if Manchester City are found innocent of the accusations of inflating money coming into the club and playing players off book, but they've been found guilty of not cooperating with the Premier League, in which case they'll get a fine because that's what UEFA did.
Yeah, I mean, a breakdown there from Kieran Maguire when he's questioned about this. And I think, where do you stand on this? Because a lot of us were expecting there to be a response, an adjudication, a verdict during the international break. A lot of the media that have been quite close to this suggested it, but there was very little that came out at all. What's your gut feeling telling you about this?
I think it's really hard to say because there's so much. I'm surprised no one's done an April Fool's thing this morning, actually, but I think people are quite wise to that. I think it was interesting because he sat next to a Man City fan there, and that Man City fan sort of reminds me of somebody who's in the dock whilst the lawyer of the opposition are reading out all the things they've done, and they just don't know what to do with their hands or their face. Because that's very clear. That Man City fan next to him doesn't give off any vibe either way, and that's a Man City fan, and I sort of completely agree with that. I don't think any Man City fans have got a bloody clue. I think they try and give it large, some of them, but I don't think they've got a clue. I think all I will say is what I've said before is whichever way this goes, it does change the landscape in football massively. If Man City get found guilty, that's a big club. Whatever points deduction they get, I think that's a separate conversation. I think some people will say they should be booted out of the league. I think some people will say they should have trophies taken away from them. But in the court of public opinion, they're guilty, and people will just not respect their last 15 years. They just won't respect anything about it. If they get found not guilty, then in the court of public opinion, I think people will go, but they clearly did do things that other clubs didn't do and can't do now. So there'll still be the accusations against Man City, but they'll have been cleared. And once they're cleared, they've already got good revenue. They're already in a strong position, so they'll just spend again, and I think they'll be at the back at the top of football for the next decade. So it's going to make a massive difference either way. Which way is it going to go? I don't trust the Premier League to have got it right, and I do think Man City will have thrown a lot of money at it legal wise. So I genuinely think it could go either way. It should end with Man City getting some sort of punishment because I think it's from the outside looking in. It's not speculation. They've been charged with a lot of things. They're all detailed, and I've read them, and it looks like what many fans thought was happening was happening. They were inflating their sponsorship deals unfairly to get revenue in. And we've just spoken about Chelsea there, who are doing something there. I don't think that's up for dispute. It's just about whether technically it's punishable. And I think that's something Man City fans don't realise sometimes, and it's sometimes what other people don't realise, that it can't be disputed that Man City went from being not very wealthy to very wealthy by getting wealthy people's money into that football club, probably certainly in the way other people weren't doing it. And you can't do that anymore. It's just whether that gets found as being punishable.
The interesting thing for me that I would love an answer to is, if you look at Chelsea, I think their highest, I did a video earlier on today where I said their revenue used to be between 600 and 700 million. I actually got that wrong. The highest amount of revenue they've ever generated was around 589 million.
Yeah, so City's revenue is ridiculous, isn't it?
So, yeah, and I think that's always worth a look. I mean, you look at there's little things that just don't add up, but maybe they do if we were given an explanation. And I understand City fans will say, well, nobody owes you an explanation. If we have weird and wonderful and brilliant methodologies on how to create revenue that you don't, why should we tell you? And I think that's a fair challenge, in the sense of, if you knew how to title and make thumbnails, Mark, in a very special way that generated 3 times as much views as others. Now, I don't think you know how to title or make thumbnails that much better than everybody else. I just think your content is that much better, right? But if there was a kind of a methodology you could use that just works, I wouldn't expect you to make a video about it and tell everyone. It's why I don't try. You get those videos that go, this is how you grow your subscribers 3 times faster. I always think, well, why's your channel only got 20,000 subs then, mate? You sort of look at it and think, I don't trust anyone who actually tells you that. So that's a really good challenge. But how have Chelsea had the success they did with an owner that has connections similar to yours in terms of multi-billionaires? How are they never able to get their turnover above 600 million? However, you guys have got to 9 billion in half the time. I'm not sitting here saying they're guilty of cheating because I don't know, but I understand why people are accusing them. And then there are these allegations, then there are these sort of charges. At the same time, what I'm really intrigued to see is City have said, and his name now eludes me, Khaldoon has said, we have unequivocal, undeniable, flat-out evidence that we are innocent. Again, my challenge, not because I understand the response to this question is the lawyers told them to. I get the lawyers have told them to, but what I want as a football fan, and I think we are all owed an explanation on this to understand what's gone on. If you had the unequivocal evidence, why did you not just cooperate and put this to bed 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago? Why have you let it get to a point where it could still go against you? Because for me, if I was accused of robbing the local shop and I had unequivocal evidence, like my Ring doorbell showed me washing my car at that time, I wouldn't allow it to go to the day of the trial and then go, I've got this video evidence. You want to see it now? I'd be showing it to the police on day one when I'm being interviewed to show that I wasn't there, and it would be put to bed. So I just would like, and I hope that by the time we get to the end of this process, we get the adjudication, we can read it and digest it, that we have answers to these things in either direction, whether it means they're completely innocent, whether it means they're 100% guilty. I hope we are not left with lots of ambiguity. We're not left with, oh, they've time barred this and we've not included that because of how, even City fans go, yeah, but even if those emails are real and it's proven, they were elite, they were gained via hacking, which is illegal, so they shouldn't be used. And I just sit there and think, bro, if, for instance, you get found not guilty because the way the evidence was gained was deemed illegal, but the evidence is real and you did it, for me, I think that's more damning for City in the Premier League than there not being a verdict. Does that make sense? I almost feel like what we need is it to go either way. We need it to be you are completely guilty or you are innocent. I feel like if it's in the middle, as you've said, court of public opinion, there's nothing that City have ever achieved, and maybe nothing they will achieve that's ever going to get universal praise. And I think that's something we all, to a degree, want, in the sense of Man United and Liverpool hate each other. But I think in our deepest, darkest parts of our souls, we all appreciate both clubs' great teams. I think we all appreciate how good Arsenal's team was under Wenger, how good Jose's Chelsea's team were. And I'm just thinking about teams in our lifetime. I don't believe any City fan that says, I don't care what rivals or the media or people outside of English football think of this Man City team. I believe that we all want our clubs to reach the pinnacle of the game and to be seen as greats. So yeah, it's an interest. The verdict's going to be so intriguing to me either way. I just hope we get a lot of answers to a lot of the questions that we all have as fans. Really, that's my desire. The outcome. It isn't. I'm not sort of desperate for City to be guilty, it from the on a balance level, I'm not. I'd like them to be as a United fan because there's an element of me going, you cheats. But on a real level, when I'm being sensible, it's not about me wanting them to be guilty or innocent for any other reason than I want the truth to come out. And I don't want there to be another year of debates and arguments. What did this mean? What did that mean? Why didn't they cooperate? Why did they do this? I just want it to be, this is what we found. This is the reasons why they are guilty. They are innocent. Boom, we move on. I hope we get that. The problem is, as you said right at the start, and I'll end by saying this, I don't trust what the Premier League are doing at the moment. They've looked so stupid in other cases recently. I worry. I really do worry.
I also think the intellect level of some people won't be high enough to understand that if you're found not guilty, it doesn't mean you didn't do something. You know, I think there is in anything, like, you know, we've seen it with certain footballers. We've seen it with celebrities. Just because you get found not guilty or it doesn't go to court doesn't mean you didn't do it. And I think some people don't understand that. You are innocent in the eyes of the law, but it doesn't mean you didn't do it. And also, I think if Man City do get found not guilty, my understanding is they'll get found not guilty based upon the fact that, they did bring money in like other clubs didn't. But the Premier League rules weren't narrow enough about that. Yeah, which has already been proven with PSR, hasn't it?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question based on your former profession? Have you ever seen a fraud case where the accused party has stated they have evidence they haven't committed the fraud, but refused to hand it over to the investigators? Is that normal practice for someone accused of fraud?
Well, it goes against you.
Not,
you know, the judge, it will go against them. The judge will go, why have you handed it? I mean, they would hand it in probably on the day of the trial. And then as a prosecutor, you would say, I need time to go through this because it's not, you know, it's not a picture. It's financial stuff. It needs financial investigation. And the judge would have to give that and hold it against the defense. But if they never produced it, the judge would say, well, I don't believe you have this information because you won't give the information. So it's a mitigating factor against you. But obviously this is not criminal. It's civil, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. But look, if they're found not guilty, Man City will dominate football for the next decade.
Yep, no doubt about that whatsoever. Viewers, give us
their revenue is incredible, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how they earn 720 million. They don't have many fans, do they? So I don't know how they do it. But
well, you saw the Newcastle celebrating, which again, the stick that's had is crazy. And I did look at it and think, just as an eyewitness account, and I'm looking at video footage on from the news, there was far more Newcastle fans there for the Carabao Cup than I saw for the treble. So and those little things are just, it's hard to understand. It is for a lot of people.
Outside of Manchester, where are these Man City fans that get them more revenue than Man United and Liverpool? Because, you know, all around the world, there's loads of Man United fans, there's loads of Liverpool fans, but Man City's shirt is quite distinctive as well. You see it in your car. You can see it down the street. It's light blue. It does stand out a lot. Where are they?
There was a stat that came out the other day that shows that I think Liverpool and Man United, and I haven't looked at this for about 3 weeks, I think we generate nearly £90 million a year more in merchandise sale. So my question
elsewhere then.
But even then, my question is, and again, I'm not saying they're cheating. I'm asking questions because I don't understand. And what I hate when I or anyone doesn't understand something in life is when you ask a question, when people sort of give you ain't for me to tell you, go and find out for yourself. Well, I want to learn. I want to be educated. I want to know from these sponsors why a club that sells half the amount of merchandise due to having a much lower fan base, why do you deem sponsoring their club to be more financially beneficial for you? Now, Man United, you can throw into the mix and go, they're not successful. 100%, I can take that feedback. But there's lots of other teams that have been successful, have been challenging, that are wildly successful in their own leagues, that have bigger fan bases globally. Why would you throw £200 million for 5 years at City when you could throw that money at a bigger club with a bigger fan base? Again, it's not an accusation that it's not a real sponsorship deal. I would love to just have the answer given frankly. We've done it because we believe X, Y, and Z. maybe then we all go, well, that makes sense. I now understand it. The problem is when people are left and given very ambiguous, sort of open-ended, narrow answers, it leads to speculation, confusion, and frustration. So I just think more transparency here is needed, and it isn't thrown directly at City. I blame the mainstream media. Where are the conversations? Where are the talking points? They get the financial experts on that understand it, but they don't ever pose to them difficult questions. Why would someone do this? Could you break down in your financial expertise, or bring a marketing expert on? Could you break down why
they could find out themselves, mate? Though it's not that difficult.
They could find out themselves, but then they may get chat. You're a journalist. How do you know? So we'll get the expert on to answer the questions. I just think more education of football fans could be done. I'd love to have the pool and the finances to do it, because everything costs money. But there's a way that we could do this, but it just never gets done. But viewers, give us your opinions in the comment section below.